at our presentations or maybe elsewhere around the world. Dr. Steve Rasner started a practice under some extremely challenging circumstances, and he grew it to an incredibly successful practice, the kind of practice that I think many dentists would aspire to. And along the way, he's helped tons of people improve their practices, get their feet on the ground, establish a real philosophy of helping your patients, but also collecting up front and all these other great things that he's been doing. So again, we'll reintroduce you to Steve in just a couple minutes. We're super excited to have him on the webinar series today. I'm kind of watching our counters. We see people are logging in. We know some people are back to their offices, so it was, we weren't sure whether we should do this in the evening or Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern as we have today. Maybe you can weigh in with your opinions on when we should schedule our future webinars, because we'd love to know what you're thinking. And again, those of you who have joined us on several webinars know that right from the get-go, just to make sure that everything's working and that everybody's there and can hear us, we're going to ask you in a second where you're from, and you can put in anything else you want in there. But just to let you know, it's great to ask questions, make comments, do anything else you'd like to do during the webinar, but it can be a little confusing because if you're looking at the bottom of your little webinar screen, and there are a bunch of tabs down there, one of them says Q&A, and one of them says chat. And we prefer that you use the one that says chat, because when you do, not just the people leading the seminar, but everybody watching can see anything you put in there. So if you want to ask a question or make a comment, please use the button underneath that says chat. And when you go on chat, the default will say panelists. Let me just make sure I'm getting the lingo right. I'm going to go in there myself. The default will say all panelists. So when you click on chat, that's the first thing that comes up. But if you put something to all panelists, the only people that will see it are me, Dr. Steve Rasner, and Sylvia Carlin from the Maddow Center, who's behind the scenes turning all the dials and knobs to make this webinar flow. So then if you kind of click the drop-down menu, you'll see something that says all panelists and attendees, and I'll just say hi on there right now so you can see what it looks like. Whoop, I messed it up already. There you go, that's a hi from Rich. So let's do it right now. If you could please go to your chat box, go to all panelists and attendees and say hello. Let us know where you're from. Wow, people are doing it already. You must be Maddow webinar veterans. So keep it rocking. Old Bridge, Fargo, North Dakota, Chester, PA, Westchester, PA, Oregon, Atlanta, Washington State, Sweet Home, Chicago. Oh, my friend from Chicago, Cheryl Watson-Lowry, great to see you. Dallas, wow, it goes so fast. I hope I don't miss too many people. Toronto, Gilbert, Arizona, Winnipeg, PA, California, New York, all kinds of great towns. Cherry Hill, New Jersey, not that far from where Steve is. A bunch of people from New Jersey. Boca Raton, Florida. Oh, that's where my daughter Michelle lives. Great to see you there in Boca Raton. Woodland Hills, California, New Jersey, New York. Fantastic. Keep checking in. Bunch of people from New York, more from Toronto. Bolton, Vermont. Wow, I was just in Vermont for New Year's. What a beautiful place. Baltimore, my hometown. I know you, Barbara Thurst. Fantastic. Great to see so many old friends and so many new people in our webinar. You know, it's really interesting. I think some of us have, oh, keep it going, please. And make sure you do all panelists and attendees, not just all panelists and attendees, because I'm going to ask another question in a second. Something that reminded me happened yesterday, and I wanted to ask this on the webinar. As you maybe can see, it's been a while since I've had a haircut. I'm starting to feel like a real musician again. With this long hair I'm getting. I just got a call yesterday, actually, from my haircut place telling me that they were about to reopen. And it's funny, the place where I get my haircut kind of reminds me of a fee-for-service dental office. And I always want to interview the owner on our audio series. Well, still coming in, Michigan, a couple from Michigan, 3 from Michigan, 4, hey, Michigan. Great to see you, Michigan. I always want to interview him on the audio series, but he keeps refusing to do it because he runs this hair salon like a fee-for-service dental practice. I mean, it's amazing. When you go in, I go in, they never run late. They immediately seat me and ask what kind of beverage or snack I want. They have anything, water, coffee, sodas, wine, beer, iced tea, whatever you want. They bring you a little snack and they never run late. And after the nice woman washes your hair, she engages in great conversation, gives a little scalp massage. She personally walks me to the chair of the guy who's going to cut my hair. Just everything runs flawlessly. And I got a call from them asking me if I was ready to reappoint. I wasn't quite ready yet, but I went on their website and I saw that they're going to be doing some social distancing measures. And this is a hair salon, remember, but the same thing, only 10 people in there at a time. They're going to be wearing masks. And I was thinking, how would I feel if at the end of my haircut appointment, which I'll probably have in the next few weeks, they tagged on a little surcharge, a COVID-19 surcharge. I gotta tell you, I would not be too happy about it. And that's a pretty hot topic right now in dentistry, because obviously our reopens are costing us tons of money, and we already lost tons of money. And people want to know, should I do a PPE surcharge or a COVID-19 surcharge? If so, how much? How does it work with the insurance? Blah, 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 blah. And we had some pretty intense discussion about it on our Facebook page called The Dental Place. If you're not a member of that, please go check it out. It's called The Dental Place. You can just look for it on Facebook. It's a really cool site for dentists and team members, and nobody gets mad at one another and starts shooting you down and calling you an idiot like on all the other dental Facebook pages. It's kind of a place where we're all kind of respectful of one another, but also welcome different opinions. And I actually posted something on there that I saw on a dentist's website. It was this long explanation of why they're charging a PPE fee. I thought it was really in poor taste, but a lot of other people weighed in with their opinions. So since you're all great at using the chat box, Downingtown, PA, our parents used to take us there on vacations. We would go to the Downingtown Inn in Downingtown, PA, Bill Reardon. So, hey, that's here since the cassette series days. Wow, James, that's very cool. So I'd just like to maybe have you weigh in. We'll do one more question, and then we'll bring on our special guest, Dr. Rasner. But who's charging a PPE fee? Who's not? If so, how much? So you can say, yes, you are, no, you're not. Throw in a quick little opinion about it, whatever you want. Let's do that in the all panels attendees board. I'd love to see what people are saying. So far, it looks like most people are not. No fee, question mark. Not sure what that means. Not charging, not sure, not charging. Wow. We're thinking about it, not sure yet. Maybe when Dr. Rasner starts his presentation, $20, $10, no pushback at all. Very interesting, $30. A dentist that I'm friends with, Dr. Neil Berman in New York, weighed in on our chat on the Facebook page and said that he's charging it. He's got no pushback from his fee-for-service patients, and his associate sees insurance patients, and they're all complaining. So, hey, maybe that's a kind of a little, I can't think of the word, but a little worldview of what's actually going on in dentistry in general. Okay, well, fantastic. $25 with an explanation. $9.95. Wow, we got a bargain. $9.95. $50. Wow. I'd be careful with your explanations too. Okay, great to hear everybody's opinions. Sylvia, if you could put up my first slide too, that would be great, because again, those of you who have attended our webinars know that we always like to start off with just a quick little tip that'll help your office, help save you money. And Sylvia, let's get there she is. She's sharing her screen. You've probably heard me talk about this before if you've been to one of our seminars or our webinars, but I cannot stress enough how badly and how simple it is, but how badly you need Fat Merchant in your office. Fat Merchant is our all-time favorite credit card processing company. We use them at the Matto Center. We've recommended them to dental offices all across the country. So many people are using them. Oh, Sylvia, we lost our slide. We just got your beautiful background there. There, it's back up there. Why do dental practices save money with Fat Merchant? Well, the reason is they do not charge an overage percentage. When you put charges throughout your office, of course, Visa, MasterCard, American Express takes their percentage, but then your credit card processing company takes a percentage as well. And it's in a percentage, so the more robust your credit card business is, congratulations, if you're doing that, that's great, but unfortunately, the more you're paying your credit card processor. Well, that's a bad equation. You're being kind of punished for having a very robust practice. Well, Fat Merchant does it completely differently. They only charge you a monthly fee, no matter how much you're charging, and it's a very, very small monthly fee. And it's so small that we've got dental practices that are saving hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month just by switching to Fat Merchant. And the switch is seamless. We set up a special website just so you can find out about it. So go to matto.com/save. Sylvia, let's go to the next slide real quick. I just want to let you know how great is Fat Merchant, where they were just ranked #1 by, whoops, Sylvia, we lost your presentation there. Second slide. Always tough doing these webinars remotely. I'm here, Sylvia's at her house, Dr. Rasner's at his place. Anyway, they were just ranked #1 by US News and World Report If we can just get a couple of comments up there on the next slide, please. Thanks for your patience. There you go. That's it. U.S. News and World Report just said their transaction fees are lower. They have fantastic customer support. Go to the next slide because I want to show you something really cool. Cost-saving solution. That's it. Now, everybody wants to know nowadays, how can we provide touchless service? You know, we're having our patients wait in their cars and they get texted and then they come in. Well, think about the credit card transaction. You pull out your slimy credit card, you touch it, you stick it in your mouth, you hand it to someone else. They're wearing gloves. It's a COVID-19 mess by the time you get it back. So Fat Merchant now has these fantastic touchless machines. You can just hold this up, the patient inserts their credit card, they pull it out, nobody else ever touches it. Or if they have Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, the Google touchless thing, there's a version of this machine that can take that also. So not only are you saving money, but you're offering your patients something they really want, touch-free credit card transactions. One more slide, Sylvia, and then we'll introduce Dr. Rasner again, but just go to matto.com/save or call that number, 844-860-9951. Get started with Fat Merchant. We love them at the Matto Center, and you'll love them too. Okay, Dr. Steve Rasner, I'm so glad to say, not only is he a dentist who I have incredible respect for what he's accomplished, but he's a super great guy. We've become good friends over the years, and he's just the kind of guy you want to know, you want to learn from, and you actually want to become friends with because he's so sincere. He tells it like it is. But what he's achieved in dentistry has been absolutely phenomenal. He started his practice many years ago in Bridgeton, New Jersey, a town that was ranked by, I think it was Money Magazine or one of the publications, as the worst place to live in the US. They had horrible unemployment, low wages, blue collar town, not the kind of place where you think you could open up not only a fee for service dental practice, but one where you're providing incredible comprehensive care, where patients are paying up front. Who in their right mind would do that? Well, I don't know if Steve was in his right mind at the time, but for some reason he decided to do it. I guess, what can you can't talk a New Jersey native out of anything, right? So he did it and has had incredible success. Now he's got a practice that is producing and collecting over $4 million per year, doing fantastic high-end dentistry. He's lectured all over the world, lectured at TBSC many times, gets a standing ovation every single time we have him there. He just reopened his office on Monday and has experienced some really, really interesting things. So he's here to talk about that and give all of our webinar viewers some fantastic tips that they can take back to your practice, whether you've reopened already or you're going to be reopening soon. That said, I would like to introduce our super, super special guest. Let's all give a tremendous round of applause to Dr. Steve Rasner. Let's hear some claps on the chat box for Dr. Rasner.
Thanks, Rich. You can hear me, right?
Hear you great.
Okay. So first of all, guys, you know, first thing I want to tell you is I am very aware that in the last 8 weeks, you've had more webinars than you probably need. I get it. And I know there's many registered for this particular one today, as we sit here on a Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock in New Jersey. So I want you to know, this is what this is today. You're getting one colleague's opinion on what I did up through before we opened, up into what we did this week, which I'll call a soft opening. It wasn't, which you're going to probably have to do that too. And what my experiences have been given all that. And so, you know, I may say things that you may not agree with, then don't do them. You know, it's just my opinion. And I think you should keep that in mind when you listen to all these webinars, because from my point of view, there's a ton of misinformation out there and not all great advice. Some of it's real good, some of it I don't know. And I don't even know if some of it's real, by the way. So experiences that people are sharing with you. So remember, look at me today as just another colleague that's had a lot of experience navigating through a lot of other obstacles in this 39-year career of mine. And it's worked out pretty well for me. So, and be sure to use, like Rich said, the chat box, because if you're investing 15 minutes with me right now, let's make it work. I mean, I'll answer any questions I see or that you have. So let's do this. I'm going to share my screen, Rich. Can I do that?
Please, go ahead.
And now I don't want you guys to think it's all going to be slides, because it's not. But here we go. I never thought that my biggest presentation of 2020 would be on a Friday afternoon in front of my computer, but here I am with you guys that I'm picturing in my head. I want to get this out of the way. I no doubt I'm going to say some things to you today that you're going to want me to send to you. This is not me selling you anything. I promise you, it's no agenda. These are different contact places you can get me at. I'd love to have you as a Facebook friend at Stephen L. Rasner. But if you, the third one down is my personal email. And if you say to me, please send me the stuff, I'll have my administrator send you a boatload of information that a lot of people seem to appreciate. And then my only plug is my podcast that I do weekly for the last year and a half. It's called The Lion-Hearted Dentist. And it elaborates on a lot of things I'm going to be saying to you over this short time that you and I are together. It's pretty cool. I've got a lot of followers in a lot of countries and a lot of good feedback. I try to keep it to like 30 minutes, and it's kind of come off like I'm speaking to you right now. So if you don't like me, then don't tune into it, because you won't like it. Listen, there's basically two ways to navigate through this thing that we're going through. A lot of you on the listening have seen this on the internet. I believe it was a joke, but in some instances, I've seen other photographs of dentists prepared to go back that aren't too far from this. So again, remember, as I speak to you, this is just one colleague telling you my opinion on things. You know, you can get through this through a baseline thinking of fear or respect. I come from the point of view from respect. And I'm sure many of you are doing what I'm doing. What do I mean? I'm not doing what you see in that photograph. I'm following the PPEs, you know, with double mask and all the things that you're all reading about. I'm doing all that with the protocols that bringing a patient in one patient at a time. And I'll get to all that stuff and how it translated out in my soft opening this week in a minute. Because if you haven't gone back, I want to tell you now, there's a very big difference between putting it in your mind, thinking about what you're going to do, and then doing it. I'm telling you, it is epic. It's very big challenge we're all facing. And then the other way to go through this is fear. And, you know, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm not going to go through my reaction for my business or my practice, nor am I going to advocate a fear approach to this. And let me explain what I mean. After being in practice this week, I went in for 3 short days. This is my personal opinion. Unless you're willing, and if you are, God bless you, to use a full hazmat suit like the gentleman in this photograph, you're going to be at some risk. If you go back, you're going to be at risk, just like you are when you go out of your house to do whatever you're doing. And it could happen. You could, and one of your staff or one of your patients could contract corona. I get it. But I think you have to all draw a line. I don't know how you could possibly practice anywhere near this. So this is what I mean. I didn't buy. You want to send me emails on it, then go ahead. But I didn't buy any filtration systems. And I've read a lot of dialogue that it's questionable how effective they are. I mean, I had a colleague call me. I get a lot of colleagues from doing this for 22 years that had an estimate at $30,000 an operatory for a new install. Even that was given to me, by the way, by a contractor about a month ago. Now, I know that's extreme, but there's a lot of money that you could spend between 30,000 and up and, I don't know, a couple thousand and up and think that's a deal. Just think it out when you get to that level and make sure you think it's necessary. My personal opinion is I'm going without it. That's how I'm talking to you. Okay. But we followed a lot of protocols that I've never followed in my 39 years. I think this is an important slide for you. You know, I didn't say this. Tony Robbins said it, and I'm not a big fan of his, but I like this slide because it's true. You know, the major deterrent, not just in Corona-19, but in life, in your practice, do you give up your insurances or part of your insurances? Do you do this? Do you do that? A lot of what happens is limited by what your mind does to you. And our mind is playing with us right now. It is. But I got some fairly good news for you based on one colleague's observations from this week. They were much better than what I thought they were going to be. So there's no doubt, guys, and I know you know this, that this is the end of dentistry or the end of society as we know it. It is the weirdest thing we've all gone through in our careers. I get it. For me too. But I'm positive this slide is true. The people that will emerge in dentistry the strongest 6 months from now are the people that are still willing to work really hard. Now, I say that to you because I don't know what I would do if I was a 64-year-old guy 3 years from retirement and I don't want to deal with all this. I don't think it's sacrilegious for you to say, I don't want to deal with all this. And if you can afford to get out and you want to get out, then do it. You know, I think that you have to, and let me tell you something, when I say about outworking the next guy, like I opened my week this week with a staff meeting, even though I've had Zoom meetings and all that, with everybody carefully spread out. You all can't do that. I could do that in my facility. I have a big facility. I'm in South Jersey. Parking's not an issue. We all have different issues, don't we? So for my patients to be out in the parking lot and come in one at a time versus somebody working in Center City, Philadelphia, or Baltimore, Maryland, where maybe they're in a city area, that's a little bit different. So it's not an issue for me. But, you know, I'm being honest with you. I mean, my practice is pretty legendary for the numbers it's produced for so many years and to be a staple of, I don't know, a gold standard, I think, by many people for a solo practice in an area that's unbelievably challenged, as Rich said. I wasn't in the mood to go in early after 8 weeks of waking up whenever I wanted to wake up and have a meeting and go through all the things I had to go. I was nervous. I'm not kidding you. And it requires energy. And if there's ever a time, you know, for you to be the leader, even if you don't feel like being the leader, it's right now. You got to do it. You've got to dig deep and find, as I like to say, that Navy SEAL inside of you. You all have a little bit of it. And you got to, if you care and you loved dentistry before this happened, I mean this, because I did. I mean, I could retire, not live on an island, but you know, this is my kingdom for me still. And it will be for many of you that when you turn 65, that you still love what you do. And it's the thing that you're really good at. That's what's in it for me. That's what's in the fight for me. And I know a lot of you might have bought a practice in the last 3 years. Well, God knows what your fight is. You're fighting for your life. We're not all in this together. You're in a different position than I'm in. But if I was you, you got everything in the world to work for. And not everybody's going to work the same. Do you understand? Some people are just not going to feel the energy to do it. You've got to do it because it's a golden opportunity. It is for you to reinvent yourself. No matter what you were before the pandemic, it's like if you were a shy, introverted person in high school and you're going off to college now, you can be the new person. You can take advantage of this because it's the opportunity to do it. There's not one industry. We're going to read about industries in the next year, right? About a hair salon or a veterinarian or somebody who became this special thing during the post-pandemic business world. Why not that be us? Why not that be you? Seriously, this is a great opportunity to you had 8 weeks off like I did. I never had 8 weeks off in my life. Recoup, get your energy together, and do some of the things I'm about to share with you. So yeah, we opened. So let me give you, without making you even wait to the end of this, my week 1 takeaways. They're going to surprise you. I detected zero fear from my patients. There's not one patient I worked on at any time when they walked into the office, when they sat in the operatory, that seemed scared whatsoever about getting corona. Not even close to that. I don't know. I expected something different. Implementing the protocols that you're learning online was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Okay. I mean, what I mean by that is everybody was on board really early on about distancing from each other, about what to do in the operatories, how to get the patients back. What if they have to make a payment? How are we going to do that? I'm telling you, if they haven't gone back yet, I was a wreck. I've been practicing 39 years. And if you're nervous going back next week or the week after, that is not you. It is a normal thing. I was freaked out. I didn't know if I had the energy to do this. And I already told you that I love what I do. But it wasn't quite as hard that way. In other words, I was really impressed by my team and how they jumped in so quick. And I'll tell you another thing, and I don't know if this is permanent, because if you've ever listened to me, I don't like giving you potentially erroneous, false, misleading information. But patients were way more receptive to what we recommended and were willing to pay for it. Because as Rich implied, one of the cornerstones of my success over the years is that we get paid up front. I wrote a book on it called The Art of Getting Paid. I've written many blogs on it, and that could be one of the things that you want me to email you, by the way. So just say, send me the stuff, Dr. Rasner at AOL.com, DRRASNER at AOL.com. And I'll send you all kinds of cool stuff that I've had a lot of time, by the way, while we've been home, to really elaborate and refresh and update these principles and my ideas on what and I don't want to waste this webinar on why I get paid up front, other than the fact that it's an absolute way that you ought to operate. And you're the number one reason you don't do that, because in your head, you think patients would resist it, and they don't. And I never count a treatment plan as accepted until I'm paid. And that's day one. That's just the way it is. And there's a lot of good reasons, not the least of which is I don't get broken appointments. So the patients, and we didn't have any giant treatment plans, but as it's going to happen to you in the last 8 weeks, a lot of your patients have had that MODL, MOUSC amalgam from 35 years ago finally come out, and they're going to really need a crown. And I'm going to talk. 1/3 at the last third of this is my new treatment planning approach for you and me now that this has all happened. And it wasn't like I expected. People were pretty receptive. They were 100% receptive. Let me tell you that way. They were 100% receptive to whatever we recommended, and there was no resistance to pay that day. I want to tell you something as an aside. I went in over the 8 weeks on a number of days for emergencies, and I didn't charge $1 during those 8 weeks, because to me, the revenue that I would have accumulated during those 8 weeks was not as significant as the goodwill that I had generated by doing a bunch of stuff for free. Now, I didn't extract any teeth, but I re-cemented crowns, I adjusted dentures, I changed attachments for implant prostheses. Obviously, we did suture removals and all that kind of stuff, and I wouldn't have charged for that anyway. But there's a lot of things I could have charged for that I didn't charge. I didn't even talk about money, but I did this week. So I didn't know how people would be, but they were pretty receptive. Here's some other takeaways. you're going to get your feelings hurt. I hope you're listening to me, because I wish I had me to talk to last week before I went in. Not all your staff's going to be on board. And that's not a dart at your staff members. I have 20 staff members, and I got to tell you, not all of them are going to come back. Not all of them are going to, some of them are going to be resentful that they're in the back with the greatest risk versus the people. I know it's crazy stuff versus the people at the front. So be prepared for that. Secondly, it is tiring. I said it was easier to implement protocols, and it is, but you are physically tired. I'm not a pulmonologist, so I don't know if there's real authenticity to the fact that if you wear 2 masks, it decreases your oxygen enough to make you tired, but everybody was tired, particularly the people chair side. I noticed that for sure. So be ready, get some sleep. It's also inspiring to get out of your stinking office, your house, and be back in what you're the best at. I got to tell you, so that kind of balances being tired. And I am more hopeful, way more hopeful than when I went in the week before. So I think you have a lot to feel good about. Before this ever happened, I've been in Rich's TBSE many, many times. And what I found interesting is many of the things that I shared with my colleagues to help you explode your practice, kind of like mine over the years, saved me right now during this. I obviously never knew this was going to happen. So some of them I want to review with you. One of them is leadership. And I'm sick of that word, to be honest with you, but you got to bring it up because you can't be in halfway, and we're not all born leaders, or even if you are a leader, you don't feel, we got so much. While I was waiting to go on this webinar, I'm still trying to get, I have my cell phone over here. I'm still trying to get face shields in. It's tiring to juggle all these plates right now to make all this happen. So you're not always in the mood to do a Zoom meeting with your team and all, but you got to do it. You have to do it. If you love what you do, if you don't lead them right now, you're dead. So dig deep, write to me if you want. I have some leadership books for you that will help you. That's just something I've only been talking about during this post-pandemic that I used years ago. They're not new. They're cool books that help you and make you understand. Yeah, here's the deal with being a leader, not just now, all the time. If you listen to me, I could take any practice listening here right now, from wherever you're at to $1 million, blindfolded, and I don't care where you're located, now or before the pandemic, and way above that if you choose to put in the work to do that. I can do that, but that you don't get that for free. I don't mean from me. I mean in life. There's a price to pay. There's energy to expend. There's crossing T's, dotting I's, being disappointed because the things that you taught 3 months ago, your staff stopped doing, or some of them stopped doing, or finding the right team that cares the way you care. And here's the deal. If you exploded, if you doubled in your gross production and collections in the next 2 years by listening to me, you're not going to split that equally with your team, nor should you. You'll give them bonuses and stuff, but they're not, you have the most to gain. And God forbid if the opposite happened and you went south, your staff's not bailing you out, nor should they. That's why you have to be the leader, because the reward for being a leader is you have the most to gain and the most to lose. So it's part of being a dentist, man. And anybody that has a successful practice does it. So here's what happened on the first day. Prior to the first day, I did the Zoom meetings. I did not do it with my whole team. Some of the people always had a reason why they couldn't be a part of it. I'm saying that to you because I don't want you to think it's unique to you if you're disappointed. I was disappointed. Let me tell you something. I have 20 staff members. I have 2 offices, 15 minutes apart. And the average staff members been with me over about 20 years. I actually averaged it out once. And like I said, I got my feelings hurt the last month or two, because there's people that I've been with for years that I never saw this side of them. I mean it. And part of that, to be honest with you, staff members listening, and I know you're not all the same, because not all mine are the same. We can't be naive and pretend that some people aren't home making more money than they were making when they were working. That's true of my people. But for me, I just assumed that everybody on my team loved more than most colleagues in other offices love what they do, whether the front desk, hygienist, sterilization assistant, office manager, that because of what we did, a fee-for-service practice, set up in this environment that's dynamic, interesting, fun, state-of-art, I thought everybody was on board with that. And that would offset a little more money that you might be making by staying home, but it's not true. And look, to be fair, some of the people staying home have little kids. I don't mean babies, but have childcare, and some don't. So I get it. So I did Zoom meetings, but then in the office on this past Monday, we all came in an hour and a half early. I had a lot of flack on that, by the way. Like, not everybody wanted to come in. I'm serious. We haven't worked in 8 weeks, and I can't get you to come in the day we start an extra hour early so we can really know what we're doing later today. I mean, I didn't want to go either, but you have to. And I found that effective. We spread everybody out. Some people were in another room looking in. We're in my office, you can do that. And this is the stuff we talked about. So listen, understand why I'm doing. I'm trying to give you a framework, literally, of what I did this week. This isn't my dream to do. I did this. So we reviewed first, and this is part of a leader, being crystal clear to your team what they can expect. So I reviewed the expected work schedules for the next 8 weeks. And everybody, forgive me do you have any foreign countries listening, Rich? Or you don't know? Yeah. In the United States, we all have the 8-week PPP thing, the money that most of us applied for and got. And right now you have 8 weeks to use it. So it's confusing, especially if you have 2 offices like me, because my second office got the money 2 weeks after the first office. So those 8 weeks are different. Bear with me. So we went over everybody understanding. And by the way, a few people Zoomed in to that meeting that weren't there that day. Then I reviewed, even the core of my group already knew, we reviewed all the new protocols, all the treatment protocols, staff protocols, who's doing what, who's going to bring the patient in and ask the questions, take the temperature, bring them back. I mean, it had to be crystal clear because I didn't want patients to sense we didn't know what we were doing. And honestly, I don't know if you've ever been a member of a civic group like the Kiwanis Club or Rotary or something. It felt like that kind of a meeting. I was so on unfamiliar ground with my team, because your team's kind of like your family after all those years, and you don't have formal meetings with them, but this was kind of formal. I communicated what they could expect, and this is important. I wanted you to know what I did. I said, look, I don't know what's going to happen when the 8 weeks are up. This is before I started work Monday, because I don't know what the revenues are going to be. And so some of you may have to go back on unemployment. I was crystal clear. I wanted them to know. And I didn't get any flack from that. I think they appreciated, because there is a risk. I mean, some of them may be thinking that they can't go back on, but you can. You have 26 weeks and you have a set fund of unemployment that you probably already know about. And so I went over their pay. I want them to understand that the pay was based on a full week's salary from last year, or a full week's average pay. I'm pretty good on the PPP rules. I never thought I would say that. So if you want to ask me about that privately, you can. So how you can qualify so that it's a grant. None of us want this to be a loan. This is important. Even in the middle of all this detail and minutia that we were all describing, I had to remind them that you can't change the core of this practice. That people, that's not my staff, by the way. So don't tell me they're not social distancing. That's just a picture I got offline. That everything we do, our body language, our confidence is what I mean by that, our knowing exactly what we're doing, the words that come out of our mouth is a thing that patients have to feel, see, and hear so they trust us. That's always how we are, by the way, but I think it's more important than ever. The value of protocols. Anybody in the Maddle group would know that I obsessed over the word protocol for the last 22 years. A protocol is the way you do something. And that's why you always get the same service at the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons, because their team members all know literally how you meet, how you greet a guest, how you serve a drink, how do you go up to the room for room service. It's not an individual random thing. It's a Four Seasons Ritz-Carlton thing. So I adopted those principles years ago. And now more than ever, everybody has to know the protocols. How do we enter a patient into the office? How do we bring, I mean, your staff may not know this, and you can't take the chance that they're not sure. If you could know all this, God bless you. But even though I've been over a lot of Zoom meetings and emails to my staff during the last 8 weeks, we discussed all this. How do they leave? What about in the treatment rooms? Just some little things I'm going to share with you that are protocols for me. This isn't a time to have your phone ring 3, 4, and 5 times. You need to take advantage of the fact that you're back whenever you're back. Have a protocol. The phone gets answered by the second ring. That may not sound like a lot to you. I don't want anybody hanging up if they're calling me and then calling Dr. Maddal to see if he's open. I want somebody to get a live human, which brings, if they call with a question and we don't know the answer, this is an old protocol of mine. These aren't new. Within the hour, they've got to be answered. And it better be within the hour. You know why I say that to you? Think back before all this craziness happened. Did you ever leave the office or go about to leave the office at 5 o'clock or something, and one of your front desk staff members says, you know, Doc, we never dealt with Mrs. Smith. She called at 9:30 this morning. That's the best way to lose a patient. That's why they call other people. One of my 2 new patients this week called me because he couldn't get into his other office. So not getting in qualifies you not answering the phone. Answer the phone and get back to them if you don't know the answer promptly. And if there's ever a time to get rid of your message machine, it's during the next couple months. This isn't the time. Do not disconnect your message machine or whatever you call that thing. Going back to pre-pandemic protocols, there's never a better time to do this than now. Every day, look, I don't want to get sappy. I'm not going to get sappy. We did this stuff. And I'm directed by my manager to do a phone call, a letter, even sometimes it's a hospital visit. I'm not kidding. She'll say, hey, you got to go visit Mrs. Such and such at Virtual Hospital. I told her you were coming by this week. And I may not like that when she says that to me, but that's how you build relationships, man. That is, I want you to think about something, those of you that don't know me. Rich said it was USA Today ranked my town, my area, not even my town, as the second worst place to live in the United States. That was about 12 years ago. And I assure you, it hasn't got any better. Google it yourself. Google, I'm not proud of it. And I'm not talking bad about the people. I'm just telling the truth. Not all areas are the same. Google Cumberland County, New Jersey for crime or unemployment or poverty. In that climate, when think about this, where I'm surrounded by either corporate dentistry in 2020 or a million places that are less offices that cost less than I do for any service, that take insurance. I remain fee for service. To be full disclosure, my associate takes some insurances, but not many. And, as Rich said, yeah, and I'm not, I just want to understand where this isn't a pipe dream I'm giving you. We've done over $4 million of gross and revenues for the last 16 years. Okay. I went 29 years in a row once. I said 29 without a decrease in revenue or profitability. Think about that. That would take you right now to the year 2050. Right now to 2050. How would you feel if you knew that you were going to have an increase every year? And that wasn't by working more. It was by working less. So the principles I'm giving you are real, man, and they work. And it's even this right in front of you. I mean, the only way for me to succeed and endure this long of a time is to be different, is to be palpably different to the people that walk in. I know you read about and you hear about a practice like this or that, and I'm sure there's others other than mine, but this is coming from me talking to you. This is how it's been for more years than I can remember. And to make that happen, it's got to be a relationship-based practice. That's what it is. And you can't just say that. You got to do stuff. So I'm calling patients. There's a letter on my desk or a card every single day. Well, if I do that one time a day times 4 a week, that's 16 a month. That's 190 a year, whatever it is. Over years, that adds up. So yeah. And you have to know that during the pre-opening stage, if you look in the lower left of the screen, we had a patient reach out program. Now, some of you that haven't done this, meaning my hygienist called the patients. We called during the 8 weeks, not to schedule an appointment, but just to let them know we're thinking about them. Real brief, wasn't a big to do. We also sent letters. We also did a Facebook post. I don't know if it's too late to do any of that. Maybe you can modify it. If you want it, you have to tell me and I'll send it to you. Okay? And understand that when you go back next week or the week after, and I've always said this, your practice is like a community. So if you have 500 patients or you have 5,000 patients, it is a community. In that community, you have different types of people. You have Marines, people that are Marine-like, that would have come in over this whole 8 weeks. And you have people that are sheep, that are very fearful. That's okay. You have to prepare for both and satisfy both. You're going to have people, I don't think, and I have a lot of colleagues communicating with me around the country. I don't think it's just me or my imagination. I think you're in for a pleasant surprise, most of you, because I was worried, will people even want to come back? And one of the things I always advocate, how am I on time, Rich?
Sorry, Steve, I keep myself muted, so I don't bother you.
How am I on time?
Well, we usually take it about an hour, which will be until 2 o'clock. Everybody's staying on and watching. Nobody's dropping out. So
okay.
I would say if you want to take it till 2:15, another 25 minutes, and then do some
whatever we want to do.
I'm totally
I mean, look, we're in this together.
Right.
This we are in together.
And I couldn't answer your question before because I was muted, but I didn't want to insult our many friends from Canada who are on this webinar.
Oh.
We have a ton of listeners in Canada, and even at least one in Mexico, Maria. So
cool.
I'll give you back the floor, Steve. Thanks.
Okay. Well, welcome, Canada. I know I have a lot of friends in Canada. That is, I've presented in Canada, Rich, at least 20 times in my career. Things happen in a speaking career. I've never presented in Mexico, my Mexican colleague. So.
Same with me. Many times in Canada, never in Mexico. So let's change that.
Yeah.
Our Mexican friend, Stephen and me and Dave all want to lecture in Mexico City, not the beach resorts. We want to lecture in Mexico City. So make it happen.
Right. Yeah. We'll even do it together. We'll do a special like reunion concert. Anyway, this is an important slide, whether it's COVID or before. It's really important. I want you to think about it. And if you want to know more about it, I want you to write to me. One of the ways I got to the practice that I have is that I created and always knew, I know you're looking at a hurricane, but it has the same message to me, because if that's the size of your practice, it's always spinning off something for you. And this is what I mean by that. In that giant practice, there are patients that are amazing, that always say yes, that always come to hygiene. They don't make up a big part of this. They may make up a third of it. And then there's another third that are good. They do stuff sometimes, but they like you. They like what you stand for. They just don't always do what you do. And they fall out of treatment a lot. And then you have a third that they also like you. They just never do they're out in the community. They haven't even started with you yet. But the bigger that piece is, the better chance you always have. My best weeks are when I have a new patient come in, something spinning off of my hygiene schedules. And then third, somebody coming back in that lived in this community, this big cloud you're looking at, and shocked me by coming back into my practice and having something done. That's how it happens. It doesn't happen all from a new patient or all from hygiene. It's a combination of that. So how do you do that? How do you get people to leave your office, even without a commitment, and they still like you? You don't think they like you because they didn't accept your treatment plan, but they do like you. I know this for a fact because I have so many that come back, and they like you because you had this great protocol system from the time they first called to their first time in the office till the time you met them and they left. There was no way that they felt pressured. You were jamming something down their throat to sell them. You practiced what I preach, comprehensive dentistry. You demonstrated it. You didn't turn them off. You connected with the patient. They felt the camaraderie, but they didn't go for it. But they still like you. But you didn't think that because they didn't buy in. You have to draw lines in the sand on patients. And this is what I mean by that. I don't go by it's never my way or the highway, or I couldn't have the nucleus I just described. Lines in the sand for me are this. If a patient came in this week, which they didn't do this, and they needed one crown, but they have obvious soft tissue disease. I don't mean 5, 6, 7 millimeter pockets. Nah, I mean like 3s, 4s, 5s that have never been treated. And we all know that we meet patients like this all year long. Part of their treatment plan is scaling and root planing. A line in the sand for me is optimum periodontal health, no matter what else I'm doing with them. And there's a lot of reasons for that, amongst the obvious that it's a healthy barometer for the patient's whole system of health, but also it's what'll make your work last the longest and hold up for them. I don't know how you can compromise that. A refusal to treat periapical pathology that I think is dangerous. I don't think all periapical pathology has to be treated in phase 1. How about an endo lesion that's very small, that's been there for years underneath a poor endofill that you recognize? It depends on the rest of their needs. I'm talking about a soft tissue clinical abscess. I won't overlook that. That has to be part, even if it's just extracting the tooth. I'm saying this to you because that's not what they came to me for. And that's part of this is a good point for you to write the lion-hearted dentist down, because I have at least 10 podcasts dedicated to treatment presentation in great detail. You're not going to get it in this few minutes we're together. Or a refusal to commit to 3 or 4 month recall. And everything I just told you are real lines in the sand that I have faced. You've all had your treatment coordinator come back to you and say, hey, they don't want to scale and root plane. Can I still do the crown? Right? You've had that happen. I have. That's a line in the sand for me. So Even with those lines, I'm telling you, I have developed this network that is helping me right now because it's very big, my practice base, even though they're not all active. That's something for you to think about when you go back. So we talked about trust a few slides ago. You got to understand the flow of trust starts before they ever meet you. It starts with your marketing. So that's another thing you might want me to send you. And I promise you, I'm not selling this to you. There's no trick here. I started giving stuff away a year or so ago. Maybe I'll think I'm foolish someday. You might get my courses, my surgery courses, advertisements for that, and that's not free, but you can opt out on that. But understand that in my community for the last, I would say, 10 years, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, aesthetic before and afters was my whole thing. And that's still my wheelhouse clinically. But I'm here to tell you, you want to know three things that'll drive patients to your practice now and forever. I am positive of it. It's sending the message that there's a dentist in the community that they can trust. They can trust you're not going to upsell them. They can trust your work lasts and will work. And the third one, by the way, it's a subject for another day, is sleep dentistry. It's amazing. It has saved my practice 30 years, 25 years ago. Why you all don't do oral sedation? And that is something you should ask me about. The oral sedation cocktail of Steve Rasner, because it's one you haven't used. I don't know why I'm happy more of you don't do it, especially if you're in South Jersey, but you ought to think about it. So post-pandemic treatment planning, I'm coming a little bit towards the end. Go back to that first year that you're in practice and err on the side of being conservative, okay? If you're not sure what you think this patient's going to accept or what you should be recommending, recommend what your heart tells you to recommend, okay? But if you think you have, I don't mean to contradict what I just told you, but if a patient right now, post-pandemic, I don't mean post-pandemic, but I mean post-hiatus that we've been away, if they had to have a large filling right now and I thought I could fill it, then I would fill it. That didn't happen this week, by the way, at all. Every patient I recommended full coverage to accepted full coverage. But don't upsell them at this point or any other point, but for that matter. Understand when you hear me say trust, how prepared is the team? We talked about that already. Is the patient distracted by anything? This second line is what you have to say to your team. Do not let our patients be distracted by anything at any moment while they're in here that makes them feel not safe. And let's be as positive as we can, which everybody was pretty good about that, by the way. You know, it takes 1/10 of a second for people to form an impression of you. Do you know that? So when you walk in now, it's hard now, right? I'll tell you what I was saying on Monday. I swear to God, this is what I was saying. I walked into 2 new patients this week. It wasn't just Monday. And I had a mask on. And I said, I got to tell you something. It's my first words. I said, I got to tell you something. My wheelhouse is connecting with new patients, bonding with you guys, getting you to know me. Hopefully you'll like the vibe I'm giving off. So I hate wearing this mask. I do. So understand, underneath this mask right now is just a regular guy that's very good at dentistry that's meeting you right now. That was my first words. I'm not kidding. Because it felt so awkward for me, especially because I put so much into that initial, here I am moment. I would try as I would when I first opened. This is what I mean by that. I took over my father's practice 39 years ago. And a lot of you guys have bought practices in the last 5 or 10 years. Those early years, you're kind of on trial with those new patients. And you can't go quite, even if you do, which I think you should do, a comprehensive exam. Remember, You can get all that on my Lionhearted. Even if you do that, I err on the side, well, okay, what can I do in a stage 1 that's acceptable, right? You can't always do that. So a patient comes in, they have to open up their vertical dimension of occlusion. You can't do half their mouth. You could put composite on the other side, I guess, but there's a lot of cases you can prioritize, and this might be the time to do that. That's what I'm doing. I don't want to go into this because it's too tied down for you right now. But this is an important line I'll share with you, and I'll get to the end. I never walk in a room and tell a patient, I believe in a comprehensive exam. I think that's the worst thing you could say. I don't care if you have a black belt from the Pankey Institute. Don't say those things to patients, okay? What I say is this, and this is a great line, and it's in the podcast. I say, look, this is an opening thing. I bond with them. I try to get to how they found me because I can always connect those dots very often. I think it's a great thing if a patient, family member came to you, whatever, in the beginning. But then I say, listen, one of the things that everybody knows about our practice is that for as long as I can remember, I've educated myself with the best minds in dentistry. I mean, I'm talking, I would say to the patient, 30 some years of this. I said, and I've learned a lot of things that are cool. And I'll go into right then about sedating the patient because I want, in case they don't know that, I want them to know that's a no cost investment with our office, no cost oral sedation. And remember to ask me for that. And then I'll say, but what I learned the most, I call what to do when. I say this to the patient. So I said, what I mean by that is you're here today. You called me with a certain problem that made you go to the dentist, and you're relying on me to give you the right advice. How do I know what exactly the right advice is for you? I'm going to tell you how. I look at 5 things. Now, I'm not going to do that with you in Rich's webinar today, but that's what I mean. And I've never had anybody, not one time. Remember, I'm not in Beverly Hills, Chicago, Manhattan, and I'm not saying everybody in those areas has sophisticated practices, but by the physical look of some of these patients that came in to see me that might have put their hunting gun in the corner on their way to sit in the operatory that morning. I mean, I'm dealing with a certain segment of patients that can be challenging to make them understand the benefits of looking at their whole mouth. I've never had anybody stop me. Most people get that. And so then I go on to tell them, you know, I know you called with the broken tooth, and I'm going to look at that broken tooth, but I'm going to look at 5 other things before I tell you what you should do. And it's the gums, it's the rest of their teeth. You know, just in case you're wondering why I'm saying this, all of us listening have seen a root canal and a crown on a 45-degree angle back molar with no tooth in front of it, right? We've all seen that. That's myopic dentistry. That's treating a symptom. That's what happened. That patient that you saw that's got that crown had pain. Somebody took care of the pain. They didn't look at the rest of the mouth. They had a crown after they had the root canal. And maybe that wasn't the best thing in a lot of cases. That's why I look at the whole mouth. And I got to tell you, it works. It does. So, by the way, Rich, I can send this to you guys, the whole lecture, if you like. Ask me for the whole lecture. So, but I will tell you in your mind, although this did not happen to me this week, I'm prepared to maybe have to do large restos, and I will do that if I think that will not make the tooth worse. If that patient in my chair is struggling mightily with the financial ramifications of the pandemic, and they need me to do a large restoration on the tooth that would normally be a crown, I will do it. That I am prepared for alternatives. I might be extracting teeth more than doing root canals. I did not find this week. And maybe most of all, there may not be immediate replacement once we take a tooth out. Do not hesitate to dissuade these patients, dissuade them, talk them out of it if they can't do the right thing right now. What do I mean? I mean, if they want to go to an implant retained prostheses, but they can't afford 3 implants, they can only afford 1. What are you going to do? Or don't remake a denture on an atrophic ridge because that's all they can afford. That's what I mean. These are 2 stories I'll leave you with, and I'll have questions. This is this week. 54-year-old new patient. He broke number 29. That's why he came in. I went through my normal treatment protocols. I looked at his whole mouth. I also looked and saw that this patient has never had anything extraordinarily done in his mouth, dentistry-wise. He had all his teeth. He did not have perio. He had some large restos in his mouth. So it's not a guy very familiar with crowns and that type of dentistry. And I knew the dentist he went to, and I knew that it was an insurance dentist, which I don't take. And I knew this was going to be, I wasn't sure if this guy would buy in, because I also had the disadvantage of not being totally me, because when you wear a mask, you don't look totally like you. So, you know, and he went for it. And he also went for a couple minor restorations. Now, he also needed a crown on number 14. Stay with me, because this is a perfect example. And it was a large resto with a crack in it. No decay, no symptoms. I just said to him and said, listen, and I talk like this. I try to be conservative with all my new patients, meaning I try to do less. And you have a tooth on the upper left that if you were my brother or family member or somebody that knew me for years, I would crown it. We're going to come back to that someday on you. I'm telling you now. Now, I don't normally do that. I normally push that a little bit more because it was the only other tooth in this patient's mouth that I thought really needed something substantial now. If it had decay, if it had any symptoms, if I thought he was at risk of needing a root canal, I might have pushed it more. If that patient needed soft tissue treatment, scaling and root planing, it would have been part of his treatment. But this was an asymptomatic tooth with just a really ugly 8-surface amalgam or whatever it was. And I just planted the seed. And I would say that's a little bit of a change for me. And then the other new patient's a good story. He came to me that he wanted all on 4. And in my marketing, people know I do implants and stuff like that. And it was a beautiful story for me because he didn't have perio. He had 2 teeth on the lower left that had a little perio going on. Everywhere else, there's not one of you listening, I can imagine, that would have been okay with extracting this guy's teeth. So he had a bridge with decay, very savable, long roots, good bone. So his treatment plan was $23,000. This is Wednesday. For restorative, he needed to restore all of his uppers. His lowers had a little spacing, and we were going to replace some fillings, restorative work. I could have crowned some teeth for better aesthetics. I told him straight up, I said, this is what I would do if I was you, and this is why. And I always do that, by the way. And he paid me that day. Here's the good news for you. By the way, I did it that day. My schedule had fallen apart. We went real soft. We had no hygiene this week. So I had all the time in the world to do stuff. And it was easy to accommodate him, quite honestly. The good news, I brought my associate in because the other office isn't open. And I brought her in to see some patients that aside, I'm telling you this on purpose. In 3 days, and I mean we work from 10, not 8, not 9, 10 o'clock to 3 at the latest. We produced 109,000 and we collected 60,000. No mail. That's patient payments over 3 days. That's a crown here, a crown there. The case I just told you about a minute ago, the 20-some thousand case. In a million years, I didn't see that coming. I can't tell you what next week's going to be, but it was a good start. And I simply embraced all the protocols I've been embracing before I even heard of Corona 19. So I have some hope. I would tell you real quickly that if there's ever a time for you to follow up, this is the time. Delegate to somebody a phone call. How do we do? Did you feel comfortable? Anything you want us to do better? They're awkward calls to make because nobody likes criticism. But if you're ever going to do it, this is the time you need to do it. So, Dr. Maddow, I have a lot of hope for all my listeners, and I hope you understand. I've been doing this 22 years. I never get over the privilege and honor it is for me to share stuff with you guys with the true no agenda hope that it makes you have a success story too.
Well, Steve, I think I could listen to you do a talk every single day. You're always so inspiring. You're not only speaking from the heart, but you're speaking from reality. I mean, you're in there doing it in a practice that I know is in some ways similar to one that's facing the challenges that we're all having. So I just appreciate you so much doing this for our listeners today. Everybody grab a pen and piece of paper, or pencil and piece of paper. I just want to give you a couple things that people have been asking. First of all, some people have asked if they can share this presentation with their team, with their colleagues, all those great things. We will be having a replay. We're going to be having it on our YouTube channel, which is the Dental Practice Fixers. So just go to YouTube, search for the Dental Practice Fixers, and Dr. Rasner's presentation will be on there from top to bottom, along with some other things we've done. Dr. Mitchell Josephs will be on there, all kinds of great stuff. But you definitely, I could watch this one again in its entirety. So you want to share it with your team, pass it along to your colleagues, whatever you want to do. It will be on our Dental Practice Fixers YouTube channel. Also, Steve kept mentioning that he's going to send you some great stuff if you like, and a few people were asking again for his email address, so I'll just give that to you. It's drrasner@aol.com, which I've got to spend at least 10 seconds teasing Steve that he still uses AOL, which just cracks me up, but it's doctor's abbreviated, so it's drrasner@aol.com. One more thing, and then we'll get to some questions. A couple people said they just saw barely the ending of our little talk about Fat Merchant, and they wanted to know the website. So real quick, I'm not going to spend more than 10 seconds, but if you're not using Fat Merchant, you are paying way too much for your credit card processing. It's what we use at the Maddow Center. They don't charge an overage percentage, just a low monthly fee. So to find out more, go to maddow.com/save. That's MADOW.com/save. If you want to ask a question now, I know it's confusing because one of the little bars at the bottom says Q&A, but please don't use that one. Go to the one that says chat. You can ask your question.
I have I got 50 emails already from your
people. Fantastic. Great. What a great group of people. I love the Maddow people. So go to chat and ask it to all panelists and attendees, and then we'll all see it. Now, Steve, one question that came up was asking if you could just recommend, you said that there were some leadership books you highly recommend, but let's get to that in a second, because I know people have texted me actually asking if you're charging a PPE fee and what and you can get rid of your slideshow if you want, Steve. I don't know if you need that up there, but we want to see your big, beautiful face with that COVID beard that you've been growing. But people have been asking if you charge a PPE fee and what your philosophy is on that.
Okay, so understand when I say this to you, it's exactly.
Stop sharing your screen. I think that would be great. I'm going to button there that says stop share, but don't cut yourself off. There you go. So tell us about your philosophy on the PPE fee.
Yeah. So understand, it's exactly what I said when I started the webinar. This is just my opinion. It doesn't make you wrong if you're doing it differently. I think it's a mistake. I think it's the worst thing you can do. Here's why. Patients just aren't sympathetic to that aspect. And I know some of you are doing it. I heard Rich say it in the beginning, and you're not having any pushback. Well, you know what? Here's my opinion. It takes a lot for patients to push back right in your face, to say it at that moment about anything. It does. A lot of people are just non-confrontational. And I, however, find it hard to believe that if you did that to 10 patients and 10 patients gave you no pushback, that all 10 go home and feel good about that. Now, I know all the arguments. I know I'm paying the same thing you're paying. I get it. But I'm telling you, the turnaround, what I would do is just raise my fees. You know, I mean, I don't have to say this to you at this point in the webinar, but for about 10 years plus, I've gotten $1,650 per crown in my office, just as one example, in that area that I described for you, plus a core, which can make it almost $2,000 for one unit. My fees are competitive enough and have been for years that the fees will never be the thing that the overall fee is not what people resist to, in my opinion. What they resist is charging a patient for a cup of coffee, if you get my drift. You know, I wouldn't do it. No, but you need to know also that I don't charge patients for broken appointments because I think it's bad karma and bad will. You know, to me, a broken appointment is a break in your system. And part of it's because you don't get paid up front, by the way. I know that doesn't apply to hygiene, but for your ongoing work, I consider a broken appointment. God, somebody didn't confirm strong enough, or we put the patient in the wrong spot because we shouldn't have trusted her because she did it one other time, whatever the reasons are. By charging them, you just give them the opportunity to badmouth you. And I don't think they'll badmouth you over the PPEs, but come on, man. You've heard what I heard a guy at Wawa the other day. I don't know if you have Wawa. It's a convenience store.
Wawa's like 7-Eleven.
And he was
But
bitching.
much better.
He was bitching to some other guy about his dentist charged him. I'm not kidding you. And I hear this. I actually wondered if it was my patient doing it on purpose. He was bitching about a crown he paid $600 from for his new dentist. You know, they complain about everything. And they're going to complain, in my opinion, about your PPE fee. So I wouldn't do it.
I agree. Steve, it's funny. We were chatting yesterday and you told me a story. I think I've heard you tell several times how you were staying in a super elite, incredibly expensive, beautiful luxury hotel where Jay-Z and Beyonce stay. And your bill for a few days was thousands of dollars. And when you drive to the airport, you ask for a grab-and-go coffee. And instead of just handing it to you saying, Dr. Rasner, we can't wait to see you again, they handed it to you with the bill for $12. And you're still talking about it.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. You're right. That's a true story, man. I'll tell you, it was a Satai, S-A-T-A-I in Miami Beach. And it was tripped out, man. There was always like models walking around and that killed the whole vibe. I never went back.
So we got some really great questions, but somebody did ask a while ago, if you could recommend some specific leadership books, which I love. Could you do that?
Tell that person, whoever's listening, because it's a little confusing because I just added that in my send you the stuff. And I'll try to send it to everybody, but write me specifically for the leadership books. They're not going to be what you think. I like easy to read, I can connect to kind of books. You know, to give you an example, the guy that ran Southwest Airlines, it's called Nuts, N-U-T-S.
Great book, Herb Kelleher. Fantastic.
Yeah, he just died.
Yeah.
You know, another guy named Sewell, S-E-W-E-L-L, Customers for Life. He's a car salesman. That's what I meant in the beginning. You can be legendary in anything, certainly dentistry, if you've got a persistence and pursuit of excellence to do that. and these are great connecting books.
Agree. You know, it's funny because my favorite leadership book is not a leadership book at all,
Right.
but it's The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's just an incredible book about you learn how to treat people and how to not internalize things when people do things that you don't necessarily agree with. And I think that book, even though it's totally not a leadership book, made me a much better leader. So I'm just scrolling a little bit. Do you have patients sign a COVID waiver or has your paperwork differed in the COVID?
I did. I did do that. And I don't mean to confuse them. Maybe it won't. I'm going to give all this to my administrator, Beth, but she'll get it to you. Yeah. Anything I used during the COVID, you'll get. And that includes the waiver you just asked me about.
Very interesting. These questions are coming in. Wow, this is a crazy one. I had a long-term 5-star patient refuse to take her temperature for screening. Yeah. She said she knows she doesn't have a temperature. She wouldn't be in my office if she was sick. She's a healthy personal trainer, blah, blah, blah. But she wouldn't let the team take her temperature because she didn't want to be touched. What do you think?
I mean, I think you owe it to the respect of your team that you got to take your temperature.
I agree. You cannot say for one patient, we're making an exception and we're not taking, it's just it's unfair. I think, I can't think of the right word, but that person's kind of putting themselves above all the others. And what if that person was an asymptomatic carrier of COVID? And it's just,
no, I mean, that's going to hurt. I mean, who wants to lose a 5-star patient? But he's right. You can't start making exceptions.
There's a question I'm trying to find here on the scroll. Oh, I know you're not going to be able to answer this one in just a minute. And I'm sure if you contact Steve at drrasner@al.com, you'll get a much more thorough answer. But I thought this was an interesting question. Do you have any lines? It's a crazy term. Sounds like we're a car salesman. Any lines for how you ask for and get payment up front? How do you get payment up front?
Oh, no. I just rewrote an amazing blog on 3 that I always bring up in my lectures. I brought it up in all your lectures, Rich, but I had a staff member do it. I never did it personally. And the questions are, hear me out if you're listening. This is pretty cool. How do you get the significant other to come to the first visit, which is part of my stuff? How do you get paid up front? And how do you get an out-of-network patient? What do you say to all these people? So I looked at it. I'm being honest with you. I have a lot of time over these 8 weeks. And I looked at everything I've been sending people, but I never looked really at that one because I had somebody do it that I thought did a good job, and they didn't do a good job. So I redid all of that. I've never even sent it to anybody. You'll be the first to get it. It is current. I have the verbiage. I have what you should say.
And one thing I thought was really cool about your protocol is that, as you just said, and you said it so quickly, people might not even realize what you meant, but you have a significant other come to the initial appointment. Yeah. Not the thing where you do an exam and then you scare them for 2 weeks and say, you got to come back for the
Right.
You have them come to the very first appointment. So there's an immediate buy-in.
Oh my God. That is such a critical part of the success I've had, that if you took that away from me, I wouldn't be telling you the numbers I do. And you're right. It's a conversation for another time, but that's a big part of it.
Agree. So somebody wants to know when you're starting hygiene. What's your philosophy there?
Our tentative date is June 1st. So not this coming week, the week after. And to elaborate, I didn't say this in the webinar, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect for me. And I certainly didn't know what to expect for hygiene. The hygiene patients are coming back. There was very little resistance. That being said, we gave our hygiene team an hour and 15 minutes for every patient. I don't have a big child practice, but they need time to all the things we need time for now. So that's going to hurt. That's 6 patients a day. That's not a lot of patients. So we started June 1st.
Fantastic. Well, it's just about 2:30 here on the East Coast, which means it's time to end the webinar. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out with us. Just real quickly, Dr. Rasner, DrRasner at AOL.com. You can check us out, of course, at matto.com. We'd be glad to talk to anybody. We'll even do a 30-minute call. We call it a complimentary consult. If you want to talk about your office, any struggles you're having, we'd be glad to do that for you. So go on matto.com. You can find out how to do that. Steve, again, you're the coolest guy in dentistry. Your practice is amazing. You give advice in such a blunt way, but it comes off as being so kind, because I think you really mean it that way. Your heart's really in it. You love helping people. And again, let's give a big round of applause for our guest today, Dr. Steve Rasner. Our Dental Practice Fixers YouTube page will have the replay, as they say. Steve, thanks so much. It has really, really been a pleasure. Great to see you again.
Thanks. Thank you.